Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will be looking at AQA Alevel Psychology 2022 Paper 1 Exemplar Answers for Attachment, which you need to know for AQA Alevel Psychology. I hope you enjoy this video and find it helpful. Let's get started. Please note that these answers have been produced with knowledge of the mark scheme but have not been approved by the mark scheme themselves. There are 3 assessment objectives, AOs, in psychology. In this video they are color-coded. AO1 Knowledge, purple. AO2 Application, blue. AO3 Evaluation, red and green. Question 1. Which 2 of the following attachment concepts were not introduced by Bowlby? Shade 2 boxes only. 2 marks. A. Affectionless psychopathy. B. Critical period. C. Interactional synchrony. D. Internal working model. E. Multiple attachment stage. C. Interactional synchrony and E. Multiple attachment stage. Question 2. Outline one example of cultural variation in attachment. 2 marks. Van Lissendoorn and Kronberg, 1988, found that the variation within cultures was 1.5 times greater than the variation between cultures, e.g. 18 of the studies were from the USA. In one study only 46% were classified as securely attached compared to another study where 90% were classified as securely attached. They also found that individualistic culture rates, e.g. Britain, Sweden, Holland, Germany, USA of insecure-resistant attachment were similar to Ainsworth's original study, under 14%, but collectivist culture rates, e.g. China, Japan, Israel of insecure-resistant attachment were not similar to Ainsworth's original study, above 25%. Lenny is being interviewed for a TV dating show. He describes his approach to relationships. My friends would say I'm scared of commitment and need to settle down. I suppose they're right. I'm in my late 30s now. I fall in love constantly, but my relationships never last more than a few weeks. My mum left when I was very young. I don't know if that has something to do with it. Question 3. Explain how, according to attachment research, Lenny's early experience might have influenced his later relationships. 4 marks. Bowlby's, 1969, internal working model, forms the basis continuity hypothesis, suggesting that attachments in early life form and act as a template and blueprint for future childhood and later adult relationships. An infant's first relationship with their primary attachment figure leads to the formation of a mental representation or schema of their first relationship. The quality of this attachment is crucial because this will give the infant a template, which will powerfully affect the nature of their future relationships, e.g. friendships, romantic relationship, as a parent. Lenny lacks an internal working model, due to his lack of early attachment, and therefore does not have an adequate template and blueprint for later relationships. Hazan and Shaver, 1987, found that 19% were classified as insecure-resistant, struggling to maintain relationships and are self-doubtful, most vulnerable to loneliness, needy and put too much pressure on the relationship. Lenny's lack of relationships and inability to settle down may be explained by his self-doubt, and Lenny may put too much pressure in the relationship. Question 4. Outline Lorenz's and Harlow's animal studies of attachment. Discuss what these studies might tell us about human attachment. 16 marks. Lorenz, 1935, conducted a field experiment on animals to investigate whether imprinting influences attachment behavior in animals. Lorenz, 1935, randomly divided 12 fertilized goose eggs. Half were hatched with the mother goose in their natural environment, control group, where the first moving object they saw was their mother, and the other half were hatched in an incubator where the first moving object they saw was Lorenz, experimental group. He then marked the geese to distinguish between the groups and mixed the groups together to see who they would follow. The behavior of all goslings was recorded. Lorenz varied the time between birth and seeing a moving object so he could measure the critical period for imprinting. They found that the incubator group followed Lorenz, whereas the control group followed the mother goose. Birds who imprinted on humans would then later in life, once matured, only attempt to mate with humans. They concluded that the gosling's behavior was a result of imprinting, whereby bird species that are mobile from birth attach to and follow the first moving object they see. This only occurred if the animal was exposed to a moving object during a critical period, which was found to be within the first 2 days of the life, although strongest imprint is 13 to 16 hours after birth, and was irreversible once established. If imprinting does not occur within that time, Lorenz found that chicks did not attach themselves to a mother figure. In a follow-up study, Lorenz investigated the relationship between imprinting and adult mate preferences. He found that birds that imprinted on a human would later display courtship behavior towards humans. In a case study, Lorenz, 1952, described a peacock that had been reared in the reptile house of a zoo, where the first moving objects the peacock saw after hatching were giant tortoises. As an adult, this bird would only direct courtship behavior towards giant tortoises. Lorenz concluded that imprinting had an impact on mate pretenses, sexual imprinting. A strength of Lorenz's study is that there is research to support the concept of imprinting. Regolin and Valortigera, 1995, supports Lorenz's idea of imprinting. Chicks were exposed to simple shape combinations that moved, such as a triangle with a rectangle in front. A range of shape combinations were then moved in front of them, and they followed the original most closely. This is a strength because it suggests that young animals are born with an innate mechanism to imprint on a moving object present in the critical window of development, as predicted by Lorenz. A strength of Lorenz's study is that it has explanatory power. Human attachment is very different from that of birds. However, there have been attempts to use some kind of imprinting to explain human attachment behavior. Seabark, 2005, suggested that computer users exhibit baby duck syndrome, which is the attachment formed to their first computer operating system, leading them to reject others. This is a strength because it suggests that the concept of baby duck syndrome among computer users parallels the imprinting behavior seen in birds, offering a novel way to consider human attachment behaviors through the lens of imprinting. A limitation of Lorenz's study is that the findings and conclusions drawn cannot be generalized from birds to humans. The mammalian attachment system is quite different and more complex than that in birds. For example, in mammals attachment is a two-way process, so it is not just the young who become attached to their mothers, and mammalian mothers show an emotional attachment to their young. Furthermore, human attachment is not likely to be such a quick process, and humans develop into maturity much slower than birds. Birds also have different survival requirements than human, with birds needing to fly and be equipped to migrate into different environments. Birds have specialized feathers and wings for flight, which humans do not possess. Additionally, birds often have specific dietary needs, such as a high-protein diet, to support their energy demands for flying and maintaining body temperature, whereas humans have a more varied and flexible diet. Another distinction is birds' reliance on nests or specific habitats for breeding and shelter, which is not a survival requirement for humans who have developed varied forms of shelter and social structures for protection and reproduction. This is a limitation because it suggests that the differences between mammalian and avian attachment systems make it challenging to generalize findings from bird studies to humans. Harlow, 1958, conducted uncontrolled environment study on animals to investigate whether contact comfort plays a crucial role in attachment formation. 8 baby rhesus monkeys were separated from their mothers as soon as they were born and raised in isolation cages where they were introduced to 2 model surrogate mothers. One was a wire mother while the other was a cloth-covered mother. There were 4 conditions: a wire mother who produced milk and a cloth mother who did not produce milk, a wire mother who did not produce milk and a cloth mother who did produce milk, only a wire mother who produced milk, only a cloth mother who produced milk. A fear condition was introduced to frighten the monkeys where a mechanical bear would make a loud noise. Measurements were made and recorded throughout the observation on the amount of time the monkeys spent with each mother. They found that the baby monkeys spend more time with the cloth mother than the wire mother regardless of whether they had food. The baby monkeys cuddled the cloth-covered mother in preference to the wire food mother. The baby monkeys sought comfort from the cloth mother when frightened in the fear condition. The baby monkeys kept their foot on the cloth mother when playing with new toys. The baby monkeys that were only with the wire mother exhibited physiological signs of stress such as diarrhea. They concluded that contact comfort was of more importance to the monkeys than food when it came to attachment behavior. There was a critical period for attachment formation. A mother figure had to be introduced to a young monkey within 90 days for an attachment to form. After this time, attachment was impossible and the damage done by early deprivation became irreversible. In a follow-up study, the monkeys who had been deprived of a real mother were followed into adulthood to see if this early maternal deprivation had a permanent effect. The researchers found that the monkeys reared with only a wire mother were the most dysfunctional. However, even those reared with a cloth-covered mother did not develop normal social behavior. These deprived monkeys were more aggressive and less sociable than other monkeys, and they bred less often than typical monkeys, being unskilled at mating and freezing or fleeing when approached by other monkeys. When they become mothers, some of the deprived mothers neglected their young and others attacked their children, even killing them in some cases. A strength of Harlow's research is that it has useful real-world applications. Howe, 1998, found that it has helped social workers and clinical psychologists understand that a lack of bonding experience may be a risk factor in child development, allowing them to intervene to prevent poor outcomes. It had also helped psychologists to understand the importance of attachment figures for baby monkeys in zoos and breeding programs in the wild. This is a strength because it suggests that Harlow's research has practical implications that can positively impact child development and the well-being of animals in various settings, providing valuable insights for professionals working in these fields. A limitation of Harlow's research is that it is unethical. The study has been criticized for being unnecessarily cruel. The monkeys suffered from extreme, severe and long-term distress. Later in life, when the deprived monkeys became mothers and parents, they neglected their young, with some being so neurotic that they smashed their infants' faces into the floor and rubbed it back and forth, attacking and killing them. This meant there was both psychological and physical damage caused to both the monkeys in the study and their offspring. The monkeys also suffered from emotional harm from being reared in isolation. Shown when the monkeys were placed with a normal monkey, reared by a mother, they sat huddled in a corner in a state of persistent fear and depression. The monkeys were also intentionally subjected to emotional harm through fear tactics to observe their behavior. This created high anxiety in a lot of the monkeys, causing them to be in a constant state of panic and fear, with some ending up harming themselves or others. On top of this inhumane treatment led to many of the monkeys dying in the experiment. However, some psychologists might argue that the cost-benefit analysis outweighs the psychological and physical harm caused to the monkeys. The experiment is sometimes justified as providing valuable insight into the development of attachment and social behavior. At the time of the research, there was a dominant belief that attachment was related to physical care, e.g. food, rather than emotional care, e.g. love and comfort. This research influenced the theoretical work of John Bowlby, who then proposed the monotropic theory. The research could also be seen as vital in convincing people about the importance of emotional care in hospitals, children's homes, and daycare, with the research showing the devastating consequences and effects that neglect and the absence of attachment formation can have on monkeys, which could never have been conducted on humans as it would have broken ethical guidelines. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more content like this. Bye.